Luzon, Philippines. Monsoon steam lifts from the jungle like breath from a sleeping animal, and the paths the map insists upon are not the ones underfoot. A 6-man patrol, Lieutenant Emiliano Abad, Sergeant Villanueva, Cipoles, Reyes and Mendoza, Peters, Santos and De La Cruz, pushes toward a hilltop shrine the villagers refuse to name after sundown. The order is plain. Verify the stone stairways, mark the trail, return by first light. The rumor is plainer. The stairs move at night. They find the first flight near dusk. Basalt steps worn to a satin by centuries of sandals, rises so even they seem carved by a ruler with a pulse. Abad counts 53 and has Reyes chalk a bright line across the top, a makeshift tally against getting tricked by distance. The chalk sits white as a vow, and then sweats itself thin before their eyes. Humidity, Reyes says, not believing himself. A bell rings somewhere higher up, a hollow sound as if metal is trying to remember the shape of prayer. Night arrives without ceremony. Insects start a choir that swallows commands at the edges. On first watch, Villanueva notices the landing is no longer square to the tree line. It has pivoted 3 degrees west, enough to move their shadow. On second watch, a mid-landing appears where a ravine was, a neat rectangle of stone with a rail polished by hands that could not have touched it today. The compass pouts. The radio breathes and then refuses to speak. Paths shorten like lies. They climb for 5 minutes and end up 1 step lower than breath. Santos leans over a rail to check elevation and sees a second staircase descending beneath the first. Same stone, same slick sheen. Only that staircase did not exist an hour ago. A third joins it like a spine branching ribs, all of it leading down into a darkness that glistens as though it were wet with sleep. The shrine, it turns out, is not waiting for them. It is coming down to meet them. This is not a combat report. It's a geometry report, filed under a war because wars give strange things permission to exist on paper. In 1942, a 6-man patrol out of Luzon was sent to verify a hilltop shrine the locals refused to name after sundown. Their brief was routine. Find the stairways cut into basalt, mark the route for engineers, be back by dawn. What returned instead were pages Lieutenant Emiliano Abad taped beneath his canteen, a compass that had learned to sulk, and a radio log full of polite silences. By day, the steps were simple, steep even, worn to soft shine by centuries of sandals. By night, the steps learned verbs. Flights slid. Landings appeared where ravines had been. Railings shifted a hand's breadth so a reaching grip met nothing. Most dangerous of all, distance changed character. 5 minutes of climbing could leave you 1 step lower than breath. Follow the descending run, and it would not return you to ground. It would return you to somewhere the jungle will not confess. You're watching the Lost Expeditions, records of places that rearrange men and then erase the arrangement. We work from declassified fragments, private letters, and field notebooks recovered where the official ledger refuses adjectives. We move carefully, matching times, tracing chalk that sweated itself thin, listening for bells that ring without clappers. We do not promise answers. We promise the most honest map the evidence permits. If untangling these suppressed geometries matters to you, subscribe now and tap the bell. Comment, "I descend," or "not a step." Your voice keeps these case files breathing. In this episode, we'll walk minute by minute with Abad's patrol. The first chalk line that fades, the mid-landing that wasn't there, the rope that comes back shorter, and the way a staircase can learn your name if you let it. Breathe. We begin at dusk, when stone starts to remember. The jungle of Lamut was not quiet that season. It breathed. Long, slow exhalations of mist rising from the soil like ghosts that refused to settle. The monsoon had drowned most of the hills in constant drizzle, and the air smelled of wet gunpowder and earth. To the east, American outposts crackled with static. To the west, Japanese movements were rumored along the riverbanks. Between them stretched miles of wilderness where even the birds refused to call after sunset. It was there, on the slope of a collapsed ridge near the Agsapit Valley, that Lieutenant Emilio Navarro and his 6-man Filipino reconnaissance squad made camp. Their orders were clear: locate the subterranean structure reported by local villagers and confirm whether it was an unfinished Japanese supply tunnel. Headquarters had received conflicting reports. Some spoke of an iron mine, others of a natural sinkhole. Yet every map drawn by scouts ended in the same way: blank space, lines trailing into fog. The villagers had another name for it. They called it Hagdan ng Dugo, the Stairs of Blood. The patrol left at dawn on June 20th, 1942. The rain had softened the ground to mud, swallowing their boots as they climbed the ridge. By the time they reached the coordinates, the sun was gone again, smothered by clouds so heavy they looked metallic. The clearing appeared unnatural, as if carved by a machine. In the center yawned a dark wound in the earth, an entrance descending into stone. Mist leaked from it in steady pulses, warm against the men's skin despite the cold air. Navarro approached with measured caution, his notebook tucked under one arm. Corporal Reyes followed, running a gloved hand along the carved wall. "This wasn't made by shovels," he muttered. "Look at these cuts. They're clean." The steps spiraled down into darkness, each block of basalt worn smooth as if countless feet had polished it. Thin rivulets of reddish water trickled down their edges, merging into small pools at the base. "Mineral runoff," Navarro said aloud, though he sounded uncertain. "Iron oxide, probably." Private Mendoza knelt and dipped 2 fingers into the puddle. The liquid clung to his skin like oil. "Feels too thick," he said. "Like blood that forgot how to die." No one laughed. Even the rain seemed to pause before falling again. At 1900 hours, Navarro ordered perimeter lights set around the opening. A faint metallic ringing echoed up from below every few minutes. Soft, deliberate, like the tolling of a clock with no pendulum. Each chime seemed to come from a different depth, as though the sound itself moved between layers of stone. Reyes drew a white chalk line across the first step. "To see if it shifts overnight," he said. They camped 15 meters away, rifles stacked, radio humming quietly beside the tent. Private Santos, the youngest of the group, volunteered for first watch. He later wrote in his pocket diary, a note never meant to be read: "It breathes, I swear it does. The fog comes and goes like lungs. If it stops, I think my heart will too." At 0:47, Santos heard the first bell. At 01:00, he woke Navarro. At 01:10, the chalk line was gone. Only a single trail of damp footprints remained, leading 3 steps downward and ending abruptly. Navarro photographed the steps, marking his first official entry. Surface temperature, 14 degrees C. Subsurface anomaly consistent with geothermal venting. Chalk line erased by condensation or movement of water. But the prints disturbed him. They were too defined, too sharp for the humid air. Whoever, or whatever, had made them, had pressed hard, as though climbing upward from below. At dawn, the rain stopped completely. The silence that followed was wrong, heavy, anticipatory. Even the cicadas had gone mute. Navarro ordered a controlled descent for observation. The rope line was secured to a nearby tree. Reyes took the lead, with Mendoza and Villanueva behind him. Navarro followed, notebook in hand, the rest of the men covering from above. The steps groaned underfoot but held firm. 10 meters down, the temperature dropped another 5 degrees. At 20, condensation appeared on their helmets. At 30, their lanterns began to flicker. Navarro's field log reads, "Air heavy with iron, lantern light distorted, forms halos, sound, steady heartbeat pattern in walls, possibly groundwater echo." When they reached the 50th step, they found the first anomaly. The risers widened slightly, curving to the left, though the rock itself remained vertical. At the bend, faint etchings covered the wall. Not letters, but circles within circles, all spiraling inward. Touching them left a metallic residue on the fingertips. "It's like fingerprints made of stone," Reyes whispered. His voice didn't echo. No voice did. At step 60, the air began to vibrate. The rope trembled behind them. "Sir," Mendoza called, "the line's moving." Navarro looked up and froze. The rope above was unwinding from the surface by itself. No one was touching it. "Pull it back," he shouted. Villanueva climbed 3 steps to grab it, but the rope slipped free like a snake shedding its skin. Then it fell slack, vanishing upward into darkness. They stood in stunned silence. When Reyes turned to shine his lamp upward, the opening they'd descended from was gone. In its place was solid rock. For a moment no one breathed. Then the chime returned, louder this time, as if from directly beneath them. Navarro's lamp shook in his hand. The red rivulets on the wall began to thicken, running faster. "It's not water," Mendoza whispered. "It's moving against gravity." Indeed, the liquid climbed the walls, upward, not down. Tiny droplets reversed direction, flowing back toward the surface like veins pulsing in reverse. The spirals carved into the stone glowed faintly under the lamplight, their grooves glistening with the same red sheen. Navarro wrote one sentence before the ink bled through the page. "The walls are learning our rhythm." Hours passed. Their watches disagreed. One read 0930, another 1610. None could tell which was correct. Navarro tried counting seconds aloud to reorient the group, but his own voice began to echo in delay, answering himself a moment later, repeating the same numbers in a lower tone. By the time they reached the 73rd step, Reyes stopped and pointed downward. The staircase ended in a landing that extended into a corridor. The fog was thicker there, curling in shapes like hands. In the middle of the landing lay a human helmet, Japanese issue, rusted but intact. Navarro approached cautiously and brushed away the dust. Beneath it, the stone was covered in shallow scratches, tally marks. Dozens of them, carved in clusters of 5. He counted 65 total. The final cluster was incomplete. Only 2 marks. Reyes crouched beside him. "Maybe they were counting days," he said. "Or people," Navarro replied. "They camped on that landing too afraid to climb further." Mendoza kept muttering numbers in his sleep. Santos cried silently, hands over his ears. Every few hours, the bell would ring again, followed by a low groan through the stone, like air being forced through lungs the size of a mountain. At 0312, Villanueva disappeared. No scream, no movement. One moment he was standing at the rope anchor, the next he was gone, leaving only his boots neatly aligned beside the wall. Reyes wanted to turn back, but there was no back. The stairs behind them had changed shape, narrower, steeper, shifting like teeth inside a mouth. "We climbed upward for 10 minutes, Navarro wrote, and ended 5 meters deeper. By dawn, if it was dawn, the fog glowed faintly red, as though lit from within. Navarro's next entry is almost unreadable. We are 5. It counts 6. On the second night underground, the team found a hollow chamber branching off the main stair. The air was thin, but strangely warm, smelling of rusted metal and ozone. At the center stood a stone column covered in spiral carvings identical to those above, only larger. Each spiral was filled with hardened residue, the same ferruginous red mineral that coated the steps. Reyes aimed his light at the base of the column and froze. Embedded in the stone were objects, boots, belt buckles, shards of metal, and, most disturbing of all, the impression of a human hand, perfectly preserved, as if pressed into soft clay before turning to rock. Navarro stepped closer. The stone was warm beneath his fingertips. He felt it pulse. The men backed away. No one spoke for several minutes. Finally, Mendoza whispered, "Maybe it's alive." That night the bell changed pitch. It rang 7 times, paused, then rang once more. Navarro's final log for that day. The bell counts. When it stops, something else starts. I think it's breathing for us now. The air only moves when we do. On June 22nd, the team attempted to climb back toward the surface. No compass helped. The stairs folded upon themselves, reconfiguring every dozen steps. The walls grew damp with condensation that smelled faintly of copper. Santos began to age. Wrinkles deepened around his eyes within hours. His hair thinned to gray, his voice rasped. He begged Navarro to keep him awake, claiming he could feel years passing through the stone. By the time they reached the 80th step, Santos could barely walk. He sat down, trembling, and whispered, "It's taking time from me." Navarro turned to answer, and the man was gone. His uniform remained, collapsed in on itself like deflated skin. Navarro no longer wrote in full sentences. His notebook became a list of fragments. Time wrong, air thick, bell, lungs. Steps reset when we stop moving. 4 left, counting down. Walls whisper back, they learn our names. The last entry before the pages dissolved into smeared ink read, "If the stairs breathe, what happens when they stop?" When the war ended, the area around Mount Lamet was sealed. In 1948, an American geological team rediscovered the site. The entire hill gone, replaced by a circular depression 200 meters wide. Instruments lowered into the pit registered a rhythmic vibration every 19 seconds. No tunnel could be mapped. No end was found. Only the sound of a bell, faint and patient, ringing far below. No one ever truly knows the hour when a mission turns from routine to doomed. For Lieutenant Emilio Navarro, it happened the moment the air stopped moving. They had climbed for what they believed to be 3 hours since Santos vanished, but every direction became downward. Their watches disagreed, their breath fogged even without cold, and the echo of each step arrived too late, as if lagging behind them through an invisible delay. The stairwell seemed longer now, each riser shallower, each landing misplaced. Even the air had changed texture, dense and sticky like honeyed smoke. Navarro counted the men. 4. Reyes, Mendoza, and Villanueva. 4 shapes, 4 lanterns, and 1 sound that didn't belong to any of them. A 5th rhythm of footsteps, always just behind. He'd stopped calling out for it. The first time he did, something answered in a perfect imitation of his own voice. By the second day, or perhaps the third, there was no sun to confirm. Reyes noticed his shadow stretching against the wrong wall. When he turned his lamp toward it, the shadow flinched. The motion was brief, but real enough that Navarro ordered every man to keep their lamps lit at all times. It didn't help. The light bent unnaturally here, forming halos that distorted depth perception. At times, the walls looked close enough to touch, then stretched back 30 feet in a blink. Mendoza began marking their path with rope tied to each railing post, creating a trail. Minutes later, the rope was gone, every strand neatly coiled at their feet, untouched by any hand. The stairway had returned it like a teacher correcting a child's mistake. "Sir," Villanueva whispered, "it doesn't want to be mapped." Navarro's field notes, later found etched into the back cover of his notebook, recorded their psychological decay hour by hour. His handwriting grew frantic, looping like tangled roots. Time misbehaving. Steps repeat. Compass spins. Air density inconsistent. Hearing doubled. Every word has an echo half a breath behind. When we stop walking, the stone hums. The hum rose in pitch until it was almost music. They called it the bell at first, but now it rang continuously, vibrating in the bones, inside the skull, behind the teeth. The sound was low enough to feel in their hearts. Even their pulse began sinking to it. Reyes was the first to change. He stopped blinking. He stopped complaining about the smell of rust. His skin developed a pale dusting of red. as though iron had bloomed through his pores. Navarro confronted him, asked if he was injured. Reyes only smiled, too calm. "Sir, I think it's memorizing us," he said. "That's why we hear ourselves echo. It's practicing." When Navarro tried to write that statement down, his pen wouldn't move. The ink had dried mid-sentence, the nib clogged with something thick and black. He wiped it on his sleeve, metallic, iron. They found another landing at what Reyes claimed was step 140. Mendoza swore they'd been here before. The air reeked of ozone and rot. Across the stone floor were circles drawn in chalk. Their chalk, the exact pattern Reyes had made 2 days ago near the surface. Only now, the chalk was underneath the stone, sealed beneath a transparent film of cooled rock, as though time itself had folded the markings into memory. Navarro scraped at it with his knife. Sparks flew, but the chalk lines remained, glowing faintly with trapped phosphorescence. "The stone is recording us. We are part of the stair now." He didn't write that. The sentence appeared later on the page, written in a steadier hand than his own. Mendoza began talking to the walls. His whisper was constant, gentle, like consoling a child. When Navarro confronted him, he replied, "I'm just answering back." That night, Navarro heard 2 voices whispering, Mendoza's and another, deeper, rhythmic one beneath it. They were counting together. When Navarro shouted for silence, the counting stopped, then resumed 1 number higher. 58, it said. They didn't know what it was counting. The fog thickened until it resembled silk. It hung motionless, glowing faintly from within. When touched, it rippled, then froze again. Villanueva, tired of caution, plunged his hand through. He screamed. The flesh of his arm had shriveled in seconds, wrinkled like old parchment. His skin cracked in thin lines and his hair turned gray as frost. He looked 40 years older. Navarro dragged him back, wrapped his arm in bandages, and took pulse readings. The pulse was there, but slow, once every 15 seconds. Reyes said, almost kindly, "He's syncing with the bell." Navarro's field journal becomes fragmented from here. Pages are torn, and entries are half legible. But certain phrases repeat again and again. It learns from motion. Each step we take, it takes one from us. There is no down. There is only further in. Villanueva stopped breathing for 9 minutes, still alive. Reyes hums in his sleep, same tone as the bell. Mendoza asked what year it was. I didn't know. At what Navarro estimated as the 5th night, they discovered a widening, an enormous chamber, circular, spiraling inward like a whirlpool. At the center stood a pit filled with the red, ferruginous liquid they'd seen earlier, now bubbling softly. Steam drifted upward in controlled intervals, each hiss matching the bell tone exactly. The walls were smoother here, reflective. Their faces stared back, distorted, elongated, faces stretched thin by unseen gravity. Mendoza leaned over the edge to look. He said he saw sunlight reflected in the pool. Then he began to laugh uncontrollably, convulsing as if drunk on oxygen. Navarro dragged him away. Where Mendoza had stood, the stone glistened, wet and red. Reyes claimed he saw Mendoza's reflection still standing there, waving. "Sir," he whispered, "he's happy down there. He's lighter." After Mendoza vanished, the air pressure dropped so sharply that their ears bled. Navarro ordered immediate ascent. The stairs resisted. Each turn upward grew steeper. The air shimmered as if the space itself was bending around them. Reyes lost his footing, tumbling down 3 steps before stopping, laughing hysterically. "We're walking in circles, can't you see it?" he screamed. "The end and the beginning are the same door." He ran downward or upward, Navarro couldn't tell, and disappeared into the fog. His laughter echoed for minutes, then warped into sobbing, then back again. 3 left, Navarro scrawled. Maybe 2, maybe none. When he finally stopped to rest, Navarro checked his wristwatch. The glass face was fogged from within. The hands moved backward. He removed it, listened. It ticked in reverse. The fog pulsed once more, and the stairs beneath him shifted like a conveyor. He stumbled, dropped his lantern, and it rolled away, glowing red before extinguishing completely. Darkness took shape around him. It wasn't absence of light, but presence of something else, something that bent the notion of space like warped glass. In that dark, he heard the breathing again, massive, patient, ancient. Then, a whisper. Emilio. He froze. No one had used his first name since the start of the mission. Reyes? He asked. The voice repeated, perfectly mimicking his tone. Reyes. The air behind him shifted, warm and moist. He turned his lamp on and saw himself. The thing in front of him wasn't reflection. It was a shape built from shadow and breath, a figure made of mist with eyes like hollow glass. It mirrored every gesture half a second late, smiling with teeth that shimmered like wet stone. Navarro backed away, but the duplicate advanced. When he turned to flee, the stairs inverted. The next step was above, not below. His sense of gravity twisted violently, and his body slammed into the ceiling that was now floor. Pain blurred thought. He crawled blindly, chasing the last flicker of his lantern. Up equals down now, he managed to write later. Gravity obeys the oldest memory of motion. He passed Reyes's notebook halfway up, or down, the steps. The pages were empty except for a single phrase repeated over and over. When we stop climbing, it climbs us. Navarro eventually found Villanueva again, or what remained of him. The man sat cross-legged beside the wall, face turned upward, eyes open but unseeing. He was murmuring fragments of radio code, his voice cracking in mechanical rhythm. His fingernails were fused into the stone as if melted there. When Navarro knelt beside him, Villanueva spoke with an echo that wasn't his own. It's not a stairway, Lieutenant. It's a throat. Then his skin peeled away in a sheet of dust, and he was gone. Only Navarro remained. He didn't count steps anymore. He stopped using the lantern, trusting instead the faint reddish glow from the walls. They pulsed now, almost like veins. The hum of the bell had slowed to once every 20 seconds, calm, deliberate, like breathing after exertion. He began hearing whispers, familiar voices overlapping. Reyes, Mendoza, Santos, Villanueva, all calling him by name. Each time he turned, he saw no one, but the red liquid on the walls rippled, responding to his voice as if in recognition. "It's not killing us," he wrote. "It's remembering us." He spoke to it now, asked questions. "What are you? Why us?" The answers came not as words but sensations, pressure, vibration, a pulse that traveled through the soles of his feet into his bones. And then, one word formed inside his skull. Not spoken, but understood. Return. Navarro stumbled backward. His foot slipped, and suddenly he was falling, not down but sideways, through a whirl of red mist and darkness. He landed hard on cold stone, coughing. When he looked up, the stairs had rearranged. They now led upward in a spiral he hadn't seen before. Above, a faint light, white, soft, distant. The surface, he began to climb. Every step groaned, but he climbed anyway, bleeding, exhausted, desperate. The air warmed, then cooled again. He counted 90 steps, then 100. The light grew brighter, almost daylight. He could smell rain again. Hope flickered. At step 110, he reached for the final landing, and his hand touched open air. The wall had vanished. The light wasn't above him anymore. It was below. He realized with perfect clarity that he had been climbing downward the entire time. The stairs had simply inverted around him. The final entry in Navarro's notebook reads, "I can see the camp from here. The tents, The ropes, even my men standing above. But they don't move. They're frozen like photographs, each of them gray, motionless, eyes hollow. I shout, but no sound escapes. Maybe they are echoes, not men. Maybe I am, too. The bell has stopped. The silence is worse. The air feels still, like the moment before the earth exhales. I think it's learning to breathe again. And this time, it will use my lungs. When the recovery teams reached the pit 6 years later, they found Navarro's journal floating in a pool of mineral-rich water at the base of the crater. His name was written across the cover, not in ink, but in tiny, crystallized iron particles embedded in the leather. The stairway was gone, buried under rock. Yet at night, the villagers of Lamut still swore they could hear a bell tolling deep beneath their feet, a sound that sometimes rang backward. When the storm finally broke over Mount Lamut, the rain did not fall. It hovered, trembling in the air like suspended glass. The villagers later said the sky held its breath that night. They watched from their huts as the valley filled with a red fog that pulsed faintly every few seconds, like the heartbeat of something buried deep. It lasted 11 minutes. Then everything went still. No one ventured up the ridge again until 1948. Captain Harold Winters of the U.S. Geological Survey arrived with 9 men, 2 seismographs, and orders that spoke only of unexplained magnetic resonance. The war was over. Ghosts were paperwork now. Still, the villagers warned them not to dig. They reached the coordinates on May 2nd. The jungle had reclaimed the trail, but where the old tunnel once stood was now a perfect circle of scorched soil, 200 meters wide, rimmed by glassy rock. Instruments registered faint tremors every 19 seconds. Steady, mechanical, unrelenting. Winters wrote in his report, "The ground hums. The vibration does not propagate through surrounding strata. It remains local, as if produced by something hollow beneath." The men drove a steel marker into the center of the crater. It rang like a bell. By the second night, they started hearing breathing. The journal was found on day 3, half buried near a pool of rust-colored water. The leather cover was stiff, the pages fused by humidity. Yet the writing inside, etched rather than inked, remained legible. The letters glittered faintly, composed of crystallized iron dust. The final dated entry read June 27, 1942, 5 days after his last known transmission. The tone was lucid, resigned, almost reverent. "I am not lost. The others are behind me, ahead of me, within me. Time loops here. Each step repeats itself until it learns what it wants. I think it wanted our faces. When we first entered, the stair was dreaming of us. Now we are dreaming of it." Further pages describe sensations impossible to classify. Memories folding backward, sunlight leaking through stone, the taste of rain without water. Navarro claimed to have reached a horizon inside the earth, a place where distance flattened, where every direction pointed both down and home. The horizon bends inward. I walk toward my own shadow, and it grows younger. On the final sheet, he signed his name 3 times. Each signature was smaller than the last, the ink darkening until it carved through the page. Winters was not a superstitious man. He was a scientist, surrounded by veterans who had seen worse. But the journal gnawed at him. The bell-like tremor continued, measurable but not traceable. Against protocol, he ordered a shallow excavation to locate the source. At 20 meters, the soil changed color, gray to black, then to a glossy basalt, identical to the stone described in Navarro's notes. They exposed a single step, perfectly smooth, wet. Winters crouched and touched it. The rock was warm. He ordered the dig widened. By dusk, 3 steps stood visible, descending into compacted earth. Red condensation seeped between them. One of the workers swore it moved upward. At 1920 hours, the air pressure dropped, shattering the glass in their lamps. The seismographs froze. The steps were breathing again. Field record, May 6th, Operator Lee. We heard metal ringing from below, like a church bell underwater. Every compass reversed polarity for exactly 19 seconds. Then silence. When the instruments restarted, the reading showed a minor fluctuation. The crater had deepened by exactly 3 centimeters. On May 8th, radio interference from the site began forming rhythmic patterns. Winters recorded several minutes of static and played it back at half speed. Under the noise, a human voice emerged, slow, deliberate, calm. Step by step by step by step. Then a pause. Then 0. Acoustic analysis later confirmed partial alignment with Lieutenant Navarro's vocal timbre from wartime archives. The odds of coincidence were listed as less than 1 in a billion. The next morning they found new footprints along the crater's edge. 6 sets. Bare. Each print pressed several millimeters into solid stone. The stride pattern matched military marching cadence. By May 10th, excavation reached 12 meters. The pit walls began exuding a fine mist. Workers complained of tinnitus, nosebleeds, and vertigo. Winters halted the dig at dusk, but 2 men, Sergeant Keller and Private Andrews, stayed behind to secure equipment. They were never seen again. A search at dawn revealed the stairwell open again, descending at an impossible angle. Keller's flashlight lay on the top step, still glowing. Inside its beam shimmered the outline of another shoe, larger, older, fused into the rock. Winters ordered photographs. The negatives, when developed, showed movement, a blur forming the suggestion of a human face within the stone. Navarro's face, a document without author, discovered in the same file box as Winters's field logs, details an event the official record omits. Its paper is stained red along the edges. At 02:15 hours, the pit emitted a single tone, low frequency, approx. 24 Hz. All lamps extinguished simultaneously. Personnel experienced loss of equilibrium and visual duplication. Horizon inverted. The crater appeared to unfold downward like an opening eye. Captain Winters descended approximately 5 meters before rope tension increased abruptly. When hauled back, rope weight had tripled. On retrieval, we discovered not body but imprint, fibrous residue resembling muscle tissue woven with mineral filaments. The rope was warm for several hours. The report ends there. A handwritten note at the bottom reads simply, "We were counted." 9 years later, the crater was revisited by a joint American-Filipino research team led by Dr. Evelyn Santos, geophysicist. She was the daughter of Private Santos, one of Navarro's missing men. Her request for assignment was marked ethical conflict, but approved anyway. Dr. Santos treated the site as a geological anomaly, not a haunting. She brought oscillographs, magnetometers, and optimism. The readings humbled her within hours. Beneath the surface, the rock behaved like living tissue. Microfracture analysis revealed constant internal motion, slow contractions and expansions, measurable on the same 19-second interval described by Winters. Thermal scans showed heat pulses traveling upward in waves, as though blood pumping through stone. During her final debriefing, Dr. Santos said softly, "It's not geology, it's metabolism." The night before she left, she descended the crater alone with a portable recorder. The next morning, her team found the device near the rim. It contained 6 minutes of audio, breathing, then a faint chime, then her voice whispering, "Father?" Followed by another whisper, identical answering, "Father." To disprove superstition, the government authorized a sealed chamber test. A steel capsule containing a camera, a microphone, and a motion sensor was lowered into the center of the crater by crane. The descent lasted 7 minutes. At a depth of 40 meters, the video feed turned red. The microphone transmitted a rhythmic pulse identical to a heartbeat. Then a voice spoke, flat, emotionless, mechanical. "Count." The technician responded instinctively. "Count what?" "Count down." Every light in the base flickered. The signal terminated at 0. When the capsule was retrieved, it was covered in a thin film of ferric oxide arranged in spiral patterns. Inside, the steel had softened like wax. The camera lens was intact, but the final frame showed a human eye reflected in the glass. Open, dilated, ancient. After the second expedition, government restrictions sealed the valley. Yet reports trickled from nearby settlements. People claimed to see lights flickering under the soil during storms, or hear boots marching far beneath their floors. A farmer named Adao Reyes told journalists, "When it rains, the earth below sings. It says names we don't know." Another villager, an elderly woman, insisted she'd seen men walking through the mist near the ridge. They wore old uniforms, she said. Their faces were calm. They walked into the fog and did not sink. The fog carried them. Each account described the same smell, iron and rain, and the same sound, a slow exhale. Internal Memorandum, U.S. Department of Defense, 1952. Magnetic resonance confirms substratal cavity at depth exceeding 900 meters. Estimated dimensions variable. Acoustic data suggests structural movement consistent with respiration. No seismic instability detected. Recommend permanent containment. Do not attempt to fill or seal cavity again. Prior explosive attempts, 1943 and 1948, corresponded with measured increase in site temperature and local electromagnetic surges. The formation adapts. At the document's end appears a red fingerprint pressed into the paper. The fingerprint's loops form a perfect spiral. In the decades that followed, Mount Lamut was erased from official maps, its coordinates reassigned to a hydroelectric project that never began. Yet pilots flying over the region reported compass failure lasting precisely 19 seconds when crossing the airspace. In 1968, an aerial photo captured a strange shimmer at the crater's center, a circular distortion of light, like the reflection of water. Enlargement revealed concentric ripples frozen in place, as if the image itself were moving at an invisible frequency. A note attached to the photo read, "The horizon still breathes." In 1972, an unmarked parcel arrived at the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Inside was a reel-to-reel tape labeled for Dr. Santos. She had died 5 years earlier. The tape, when played, contained a male voice whispering through static. "If you hear this, we found it." We walked until walking folded back on itself. Every step became younger, every breath older. The horizon closed above us. It took time away so gently we didn't notice. "Tell my mother I'm coming home." Voice print analysis matched Lieutenant Navarro with 94% certainty. The remainder of the tape was silence, except for one faint sound repeating endlessly. A bell, counting down from 6. When it reached 0, the reel stopped, though 3 meters of tape remained unspooled. Today, the crater sits hidden beneath forest canopy, its edges softened by vines and moss. Birds circle but never land. Instruments placed by modern surveyors still record rhythmic anomalies, a subtle push and pull in the magnetic field. A breath. On quiet nights, villagers claim the wind in the trees forms words, names half remembered, syllables of men who never left the war behind. Some say the ground underfoot shifts slightly, as if flexing. Some refuse to listen at all. Every 19 seconds the soil exhales. Every 19th minute it inhales again. And somewhere far below, in the red glow of the sleeping stair, an echo waits. Patient, methodical, eternal. Step by step. Count. Down. Return.